Hey everyone, in this video we're going to walk you through an example of how much you will pay in buyer closing costs on the purchase of a condo here in Miami. I'm Nick at Houseit. If you're not already familiar with Houseit, please do check us out. We can save you money when buying, selling, or renting in Florida as well as New York. So you can visit our website to learn more. And for today's video, we're actually going to use the closing cost calculator on the Houseit website. So you can actually navigate to this page yourself. The URL is at the top, also below in the description. And let's go ahead and get right into it. So the first thing we want to mention about Florida and Miami is that your closing costs are going to be really low compared to a place like New York. A lot of New Yorkers have been coming down to Florida in recent years for many reasons, and they're pleasantly surprised to find that closing costs are a lot lower here in Florida. So just as an example, we have here on the screen a hypothetical closing cost calculation for a $1 million condo in Miami, Florida. So on the right-hand side, you see line items for all of the estimated closing costs. And at the bottom, you see that the percentage of the purchase price in this example is about 1.35%. Now, if we take that same assumption of a $1 million purchase price and put that into our New York City buyer closing cost calculator, you'll see here that the closing costs are multiples higher. We're talking about $40,000 instead of $13,000. So it's a huge difference. And so it's just one of the benefits of buying here in Florida. So as far as closing costs are concerned, they're pretty low. And basically we'll just go through all of them now. So the first closing cost you have in Miami is title insurance. It is the largest closing cost. And interestingly enough, title insurance is certainly negotiable as far as who pays it, but it's not always the case in Florida that the buyer pays it. In fact, in many other counties outside of Miami-Dade, it's actually customary for the seller to pay. So if you are buying somewhere else in Florida, not in Miami-Dade or Broward County, for example, then you will actually have even lower closing costs than what you see here on the screen. So you can also check out our website. We have a more detailed article about buyer closing costs. And here, we go into a much greater degree of depth for each of the items that appear in this calculator. But you can also go to the bottom here, and we have a little glossary, and you can learn a little bit more about the various items. So the next closing cost is like a settlement or closing fee. This one is pretty straightforward. Basically, this is paid to the attorney, is essentially the person who takes care of the closing. So it's a flat fee. It's pretty straightforward. It's not a lot of money on this type of purchase. The next one would be like your HOA or building fees. There's some sort of an application fee. There's not going to be a survey fee if it's a condo. You'll have a home inspection fee if you're doing an inspection. Pretty common to do one, a few $100s. County recording fees. And then the other two most substantial buyer closing costs in Miami, Florida consist of the Florida documentary stamp tax, as well as the Florida non-recurring intangible tax. Now, the first thing to mention is look what happens here if we remove the financing. They completely disappear. And basically what that means is that these closing costs really only apply to people who are financing. So if you're an all-cash buyer, look how low your closing costs are now. Talking about $6,800 on $1 million purchase. That's really low. So specifically, the Florida documentary stamp tax, let us take a look here, is basically equivalent to the mortgage recording tax in New York City. You basically pay the tax rate on your loan size, and there's actually another Florida documentary stamp tax that the seller pays. So as you can see here, buyers pay the tax on the loan amount if they have a mortgage, and sellers pay the tax at a different rate on the contract price for the deed transfer. So the Florida documentary stamp tax rate is 0.35% of the loan amount. Now, just as a quick sidebar, we do have another calculator that goes into more detail on the Florida documentary stamp tax. And we brought this up just to illustrate one point, and that is namely the fact that the rate for the buyer doesn't change. If we play with these various assumptions, the only thing that you see which changes is the component on the sell side for the seller. So in other words, the seller has different tax rates based on their situation. And I believe we have a table down here which explains that. So based on the county and the property type, the rate could be anywhere from 0.6 to 1.05%. But if you're a buyer, this does not concern you. So we can go back to our calculator. So the next one is the Florida non-recurring intangible tax. So let's go down to the glossary and take a quick look here. Basically, this is like another tax on your loan amount if you're financing. It's a one-time tax and it's 0.2% of the loan amount, only again if you're financing. So that is the third largest closing cost. To summarize, you have title insurance, your largest one, you have your documentary stamp tax, and then you have your non-recurring intangible tax. Moving forward, of course, you have lender-related fees, your standard bank processing application fee, appraisal fee, credit report fee. You have your home insurance premium, and another interesting one you have here is the Florida Form 9 endorsement. So if we go down to the glossary, we can see that basically this is like kind of like an add-on to your title insurance policy, because per the FAQ here, title insurance policies typically don't insure against defects found via the survey. Therefore, lenders require you to get this additional endorsement, which is called a Form 9 endorsement. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. These are the closing costs you're going to pay. Again, big picture is they're quite low compared to New York City, where you're going to pay closer to 4% on a $1 million condo purchase. The other thing we want to mention too is this is all outlined in the contract. When you submit an offer in Miami on a condo, it's very straightforward. Your agent is going to use a standard template, which is typically this one here, which is an as-is residential contract prepared by the Florida Realtors in conjunction with the Florida Bar. And if you go to Section 9, it's very, very clear who pays what closing costs. And previously we alluded to a slight difference in title insurance responsibility based on county. And you can actually see that here in the Section C, title evidence and insurance. And you see here that you have a checkbox. So if you're in Miami-Dade or Broward, where this custom is in effect that the buyer pays, your agent will check this box. But again, this is all negotiable in theory. So depending on who the buyer is, who the seller is, who's motivated, who's not, etc., you can kind of see who will end up paying for what. So that's, again, basically it with respect to closing costs. One other thing to mention is you can actually reduce your closing costs through HouseIt, through a service we offer called the Buyer Closing Credit, which is akin to a buyer agent commission rebate. It's very simple how that works. We guide you through the process as your traditional buyer's agent. So we'll help you with showings, arranging viewings, tracking down answers to questions, running CMAs, comps reports for properties, preparing an offer, submitting, negotiated, and so forth. So it's a full service offering that we provide. However, instead of keeping all that buyer agent commission paid by the seller, we'll actually give you back the majority of it through what's called a buyer agent commission rebate. So you can actually see mechanically here how it works. So typically a seller agrees to pay 6% commission. If you are represented, up here you can see that the total commission is split between the listing agent and the buyer's agent, and we come in here whereby we actually give you back the majority of that commission. But if you're not represented, we have the lower part of the graph here, or the diagram, and usually the seller still pays 6%. So you don't really have the opportunity to save money on the purchase price because the seller doesn't actually have any savings to recoup as far as commission is concerned. So the buyer closing credit service is a great way to extract some of the built-in commission and to considerably reduce, if not fully eliminate, your buyer closing costs. So if you'd like to learn more, visit our website, houseit.com, send an email, team@houseit.com. We'd love to connect, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below this video. And if you enjoy this content, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. I'm Nick at HouseIt, and we'll see you on the next one.